Round 5 live NFL draft. San Francisco 49ers on the clock in just a few picks here. And who knows, they might jump up a couple of slots here. So we got to be ready. We got to be mobile here as the 49ers have been in this draft. Locked on 49ers, NFL Draft Live, Round 5. Who you got for the San Francisco 49ers? Coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for jumping in on this live episode or listening from wherever you are about the round 5 selections for the San Francisco 49ers, who are going to be on the clock very soon at number 155. A lot of people still trying to figure out what happened yesterday, Croc. Seeing Chad Ryland, Croc, with the Patriots going kicker in the 4th round. Does it make you feel better? Very reminiscent of 2019. Remember when the Niners went Wishnowski punter early? It was the Patriots the very next round who went punter. Now with kicker, the Patriots do it again. 49ers clearly wanted first dibs on kickers, and it was Jake Moody. How we feeling now? I think a lot of the fan base still a little bit curious and maybe upset a little bit about a kicker pick yesterday.
Well, I want to ask you, do you think that if they had a 4th round pick, would they have taken him as early as they did?
Probably not. Probably not, but I don't know. It's hard to say, and it's hard to say who would have fallen, who likes which kicker where. And, you know, if the 49ers don't take a kicker in the 3rd, do the Patriots take a kicker in the 4th? You know, if somebody, you know, it's kind of a waiting game. If you only like 2, one of them goes, then you got to pick your guy there. And I think that's what we saw with safeties yesterday for the 49ers. They thought, we have one safety left we really like. Let's go get them because we don't want someone to take them. And maybe the Patriots felt the same way about kicker. Niners went kicker early, so they had to go kicker early.
Here's my, I guess, issue with it. You talked about it, I think, and you got the official stat when we got off. What is it? 17 kickers have been drafted. Only one has signed a second contract with the team that drafted them. So when you look at that, and then you think of just the value of it, drafting a guy in the 3rd round, I don't know who else you would have gotten, but I do know it just feels like how much better is a drafted kicker over a replacement level kicker. And I think from that standpoint, that's where it doesn't make sense. I get, and I can always justify what it is that they are trying to do. You lost Robbie Gould. You were able to count on him. You went and got the best kicker in college football. I get it. But how much better is the best kicker in college football, you know, and how does that translate to the NFL? So far, it hasn't done well with the other teams that we've seen in recent years draft guys high, or with the numbers that you put out there kind of overall.
Yeah, kickers are almost reverse running back where they don't hit their stride until later in their career. I mean, the greatest kicker we've ever seen, Justin Tucker, was an undrafted free agent kicker. There have been, this is the stat, and this is from our buddy Jordan Elliott at @splash_cousin on Twitter. There have been 17 kickers selected in the NFL draft over the last 10 seasons. Only one of those kickers got a second contract with the team that drafted them. You know, Robbie Gould wasn't drafted by the 49ers, right? So one of the things in the chat and one of the things people talk about was like, oh, at least it's a safe pick to draft a kicker. You know, you need a starter. You get your starter here. Drafting the kicker isn't really even all that safe.
It's not safe at all. It doesn't sound like it is very safe.
So we'll see. Is he clutch? Does he make a lot of big kicks for the 49ers? Has a good leg. I've seen, some scouting reports. It doesn't have a booming leg, but clearly he's made some long field goals in his career as well. But we've got to focus in on the 5th round now as the 49ers get close to being on the clock here at number 155, a couple picks away, Croc. Who are the best players available for you? We've seen a lot of the players we like for the 49ers late 3rd. I mean, that's a long time to wait. Most of them went off the board in round 4 there. Right to start the round, it was offensive tackles, Nick Saldiveri and Blake Freeland off the board. My guy, Isaiah McGuire, off the board in the 4th round. Adebawore slid quite a bit. He got out of the 3rd round, went early in the 4th round. So looking at the best available here, Croc, I'm seeing Henry To'o, linebacker from Alabama. There's Corey Trice that we've talked about as potentially being a 3rd, 4th round guy. He's still there for the 49ers. They want to go DB and double up on defensive backs, the long corner out of Purdue. Your guy, wide receiver A.T. Perry from Wake Forest, still available, Croc.
Yeah, Travarius Hodges-Tomlinson. You got Corey Trice still out there, cornerback. So obviously I'm going to go to the corners first. But then you got edge rusher Andre Carter, big, long guy. So Luke Wepler Whibbler, the offensive lineman for the Ohio State Buckeyes, interior offensive lineman. So, I mean, there are some players still available and within striking distance for the 49ers right now. It just depends on where they want to go. Me, I feel like you can never have enough coverage guys. So I think this is kind of the sweet spot to go cornerback. You got safety, you got kicker, you got tight end. Definitely safety and tight end were a couple positions where we're like, potentially you want to kind of address those with as good of guys as you can get. I think right now being able to get cornerbacks that are different, that bring something a little bit different, being able to go either Travarius Hodges-Tomlinson or Corey Trice, or potentially maybe getting both of those type of guys that are just drastically different, and it creates just a different level of depth or matchup opportunities for the 49ers. I would like something like that. Or Elias Ricks. I see my guy Jason Laponte, Elias Ricks from Alabama. Obviously, he was a 5-star cornerback, one of the best. Nicknamed Pick Six Ricks for his interceptions at Mater Dei. I love my California guys. He transferred to IMG, I believe it was. Went to LSU, had 2-3 pick sixes as a freshman, but then things kind of got a little weird, and then he tested terribly. So I think the slide that you see from him right now it's solely off of he was really bad with his testing, and you can get him really late. I thought for how he tested, I was thinking more 5th round, 6th round would be where it's like, oh, okay, like I like where they took him. We'll see if he plays above his testing. But it kind of reminds me I had a workout with the New Orleans Saints, right? And man, I was working. I told you about this. I was working in the back room at Macy's. It was the off season in the Arena League. You ain't getting paid no money, and I wasn't really working out. Wasn't training with the Saints during the Super Bowl with the 49ers and Baltimore at this time when they were in New Orleans. But the Saints flew me in, worked me out. And I ran terribly, man. I ran a 4.71. And they were like, you killed the field drills. So we won't sign you, but we'll bring you in for rookie minicamp, and we'll give you an opportunity to prove that you're better because we like the way you moved, etc. So I say all that to say, like, a guy can run a bad 40, you can still like it, but you're just not going to invest as much in him.
We got Jalen Duncan, offensive tackle from Maryland, potentially on the board still for the 49ers. Daniel Scott out there. They already went their safety, so he's probably not going to be the pick in San Francisco, but they could double up on some positions as well. And looking at tight ends, there's still some guys out there. Will Mallory, tight end, athletic tight end from Miami, and Davis Allen, the bigger, more Y inline tight end from Clemson, a player I like. Payne Duncan's a really good blocker as well, not super athletic from Purdue. Zach Kuntz was the combine superstar. Neither one of us liked his tape. Croc still out there. So if the 49ers wanted to double up and add more competition at tight end, they could do that as well.
It looks like 49ers on the clock right now.
Here we go. How about Dontavian Wicks, actually, the other wide receiver? So A.T. Perry and Wicks. And here's another guy that I think the 49ers might have been considering. The Seattle Seahawks just took off the board at pick 154. Michigan center Olu Oluwatimi is a player I know a lot of people had mocked to the San Francisco 49ers in around this area. So the 49ers now on the clock in round 5. Let's see it in the chat. Which player do you think the 49ers are going to select?
They say pick is in. I'm going to wait until I potentially see it on the screen, or I'll let you kind of announce it to me where it is. I'm not looking at the chat right now. So the Michigan center, though, I mean, obviously with the 49ers, I mean, that would have been something where you feel like this is where, again, I'm really big on value. This is a good value spot for the 49ers, being able to draft a center in this type of range. So if they were interested in the Michigan center and he got sniped by Seattle, yeah, that's a little unfortunate.
We'll see where they go. There's going to be some shocks. The 49ers shocked us once with the kicker pick in the 3rd, and kind of surprised us again with the Luter pick late in round 3.
What would be surprising to you here if they took just what position?
I don't know, position wise, if anything would shock me. Maybe just something that like a quarterback would probably be pretty shocking here, because we saw the quarterbacks we were looking at in this range. DTR off the board in round 5 at pick 140. Jake Haener went to the Saints in round 4. Clayton Tune off the board as well. So a lot of quarterbacks have been gone, but I think the 49ers will look at quarterbacks late. It could be here, could be 7th round, could be undrafted free agent. There was a report during the 5th round here just a minute ago from Ian Rappaport, still talking about that Trey Lance could be traded. So we'll see if any of that happens right now. That would be future picks, obviously, at this point, if Trey Lance was to be traded. And the pick is in. Nope. Still don't see what the pick is. Niners taking their time. Maybe they're taking phone calls with the
Right.
155th pick in this draft. They do have 5 minutes, I believe, to make their pick. Most of these have gone much faster than 5 minutes here on day 3, though.
You got well, they already drafted safety. I was gonna say Antonio Johnson, safety out of Texas A&M.
Yeah,
But
more of a box guy.
definitely some receivers. And here's the thing with receivers, man. You can still wait, but I don't know how much longer I'm waiting to get A.T. Perry.
Oh, I have no problem. Dontavian Wicks or Perry here. And the pick is in, Croc. The 49ers are going cornerback, and it is Darrell Luter Jr. from South Alabama going small school corner. I've seen his name a couple of times throughout the draft process. I did not put any tape on of the South Alabama prospect, but 6 feet, 189-pound cornerback. According to the scouting report here, more of a press zone corner with length to get his hands on receivers. This from ESPN scouting report. Length to get his hands on receivers and make it tough for them to get into routes, mirrors the release and flashes the ability to smother underneath routes, plus fast enough to turn and run with receivers. Luter, I think it's how you pronounce his name, Luter, Luter, has big hands and will routinely pluck the ball out of the air. So the 49ers going small school cornerback out of South Alabama, Croc.
Well, luckily for you guys right now, you get a kind of a live reaction out there on some South Alabama defense against Central Michigan, and I'll watch that and maybe get somewhat of an opinion on what he thinks, what I think he is. But I mean, this is a guy. I mean, I have no idea who he is. I will say I did in college. I played against South Alabama, so that was pretty cool. A lot of fans in the stands there.
What's what conference is that?
So back then they were transitioning into 1AA, and I think now they might just be FBS, I believe.
What conference was Arkansas? Sorry, I'm trying to read things and talk at the same time. Arkansas Monticello. What conference is that?
Originally I was in the Gulf South Conference, which is D2.
So 5'11" and 7/8 at the pro day for Darrell Luter. He was 189 at the combine, a little lighter, 187 at his pro day. Didn't run at his pro day, but did have a 40.5-inch vertical. He had a 4.46 40-yard dash time at the combine, 1.54 with the 10-yard split. Again, another 40.5-inch vertical, and 10.3 broad jump, 4.43 with the short shuttle, which is not great, but 6.90 in the 3-cone, which is really good.
Really good.
So, yeah.
What am I seeing? 2 different numbers for him? That's a tough thing with some of these guys. They start changing their numbers.
I got number 18.
All right.
That's what I'm seeing.
Watching number 18, and I don't see him on the field. That's what I'm seeing too, though.
This scouting report from Dane Brugler of the Beast. He says, overall, won't be an ideal fit for every scheme, but he is athletic, long, and unfond of receivers who think the catch point belongs to them. He projects as a man coverage NFL cornerback with the skill set to work inside or outside.
Well, those are the type of guys that I typically like. And someone asked me about the type of corners I, typically am attracted to. I would say guys that are in the 5'11" to 6.5 range, weigh around 190 to 195. I just think those guys typically just have better natural movement skills. So I'm more drawn to that type of guy. I feel like they're a little bit more versatile, a la Emmanuel Mosley. I think one thing about Emmanuel Mosley, which makes him as versatile as he is, he's a very fluid mover, and he was a guy that the 49ers identified that could play inside and out from the jump, right? And I think that helped him make the squad over Tavares McFadden. So with Luter, we'll see what he could do. Both games that I've turned on so far, I don't see a number 18 out there. So I'll have to.
Yeah, he might have.
I have to do a deep dive a little bit later for y'all. But I know my phone, my chat, my Twitter's probably blowing up. All right, Croc, you're the cornerback guy. And it's bro, I have no idea who this kid is.
Yeah, you didn't watch. You didn't get to the South Alabama portion of the cornerback tape. A lot of guys to watch, man. Every time we did a podcast, we'd be like, "Hey, Croc, here's a dozen more guys we could watch. Which ones are we going to watch today?" And if you want to do it right, you got to watch a lot, and you're not just looking at highlights. So
right.
I'm looking at
curious though over some of the other guys like Tavares Hodges Tomlinson. Now again, between him and Trice, right? You got two guys on both, like one guy on this end of the spectrum, the other guy on the other end, right? Where Trice, I believe you said potentially a safety, or did you like him at corner?
I thought he had I thought he looked like a player who had a chance to, if he missed at corner, could play safety, and he played safety early in his career and then converted to corner. Did that mean he just wasn't really a good fit and didn't have a natural feel at safety? Is that why Purdue moved him back to corner, or they just liked him at corner because of his athleticism and length and had other guys that they wanted to play safety? But I thought he could stick at corner, but potentially be a really rangy safety as well, not afraid to hit guys. But less of a tweener where I didn't think he could fit in either. He was more because sometimes you're versatile, sometimes you're a tweener. If you're a tweener, you don't really fit in either spot. To me, Trice looked like he was versatile where he could play potentially both.
All right. So you look again, you got Trice and then you have Tomlinson. Those guys are on, it's kind of one end of the spectrum, then the other guy on the other, where maybe they kind of just went with a guy that was like in between, where it's like, hey, he's not small, he's not this big guy, but fluid guy, good movement skills. You talked about the 3-cone. That's terrific. You talked about the big hands, right? He likes to be physical and he's terrific at the catch point. And I think those are all things that naturally, if you just saw him working out in shorts and t-shirt, which is typically how they do these workouts, it's a guy that probably moved very well. So did they bring him in for a 30?
I did not see that, but I do see the pronunciation on his name. It's not Darrell, it's Darrell. So Darrell Luter is the proper pronunciation there. Let me go check the list. I don't know if he was a 30 visit or not. Got his hands on a lot of footballs last year. In 2021, he started 10 games. He did not start. He was a community, looks like Mississippi Pearl River Community College guy for a couple of years. So 5th year senior, 23 years old, then transferred in 2020, the COVID season, to South Alabama. Didn't play a lot, and then started all 10 games and all 13 games the last 2 years. Got his hands on 4 interceptions in 2021 and had 1 interception last year. So 5 interceptions the last 2 years.
Then where the heck is he on this film?
I think if we're just looking at height, weight, speeds, and how these guys fit, and looking at some of the corners available, and you talked about how extreme ends of the spectrum, guys like Trice and Tomlinson are, 6'3" and 5'8". Luter's right in the middle here, but has the athleticism to turn a run. Sounds like he's got lateral athleticism, has, the vertical ability. But the real thing that is key to me that I love, and shout out to Dane Brugler, just with the descriptions in his scouting reports in the Beast. Unfond of receivers who think the catch point belongs to them. I just love the way he puts that. And I mean, that's what you want in a cornerback. So he's got, good size, good length, long arms, 32 and 5/8, so almost 33-inch arm length, 40.5-inch vertical. So you can run, lateral agility, and the mentality that the ball does not belong to the receiver at the catch point. So I love what I'm hearing here, even though I haven't watched any tape at all of South Alabama this year.
I'm watching him against Central Michigan, and I just don't see him. So, which is interesting because it said he started every game last year.
Yeah, so he must have changed numbers. It says number 18 here for him.
Well, when I went to his Instagram page, it was number 18 as well, and looks like he's having a child on the way. Congratulations!
Congrats! Yeah, big man, big day, big week, big month, big year.
Or let's see. Gosh, see these new kids, it's like they don't put a whole lot on their Instagram. So it's like I'm looking and I'm trying to find, okay, number 18, but the only thing, if he's something different, he went to the Senior Bowl and wore number 18. But
that's where I saw his name was at the Senior Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. But he has 0 pictures of him actually playing football at South Alabama.
We think about this. Nick says Niners are now drafting guys who intercept the ball, secondary filling up with playmakers. What do you think? Do you think that's something that you can target and should be targeted in the draft? They're trying to find guys who can create turnovers.
I think if you have a chance to do that, you do it. I don't think it's not a coincidence that guys that make plays, they just make plays. And I feel like they do that at every level. So you go, if you just build your secondary around guys that just take the ball away, I'm all for that. That ability to take the ball away is not going away.
What do you think about this? Mike says, unfond of receivers that think the catch point belongs to him. Translation, defensive pass interference nightmare.
I don't. Oh, did my guy get drafted? Did Wicks get drafted? I'm looking and they're showing highlights of him.
Oh, Green Bay Packers at pick 159, Dontavian Wicks, wide receiver out of Virginia. That would have been a nice one for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think that might be a steal because right now they have him listed 6'1", 206, 4'6", 40. And I think that 4'6" is fake. That 4'6".
Oh, yeah. When we both put on the film, after talking about some of the 49ers 30 visits and watched him, because he's not someone who's had a lot of hype in the draft process. He looked nice. He had quicks getting in and out of his break, had nice size, and he's bigger than Ayuk even. But had some juice to him and was good going and get the ball down the field. So, it might be a sleeper pick there for the Packers, Dontavian Wicks out of Virginia.
Yeah. But as far as the 49ers and the way they're building their secondary, I like it from the standpoint of just guys that take the ball away and the guys I've played with that had a knack for doing that, they just do it, right? Like think of Antonio Cromartie. And I wasn't with the Jets for like a long time, but Cromartie, what he did throughout his career, take the ball away, had 10 interceptions in 1 year. Well, when he played at Florida State, although he didn't play a whole lot, I don't even think he started a bunch of games. He had the injury. I think he tore his ACL, but every clip that they posted when he got drafted was him taking the ball away, interceptions to the crib, pick six, jumping routes. And that ability translated to the NFL, just the ability to just take the ball away. And the 49ers with Talanoa Hufanga, he was another guy that just had a knack for being around the ball. Get to the NFL, what is he doing? He's around the ball. He's making plays, even if it's not necessarily just him, right? I mean, Packers divisional round game, what did the 49ers do? Block a punt. Who was there to pick it up? Talanoa Hufanga. I don't think that's an accident. And even with Brown, right? Say his name right? The safety from Penn State.
Jir'Ay Brown, yeah.
I've been watching him all morning. And if he takes the ball away, it's going to be because of how he hustles to the ball, no matter where it's at. So if somebody pokes up, knocks a ball and it's in the air, he's going to be around the ball to get the pick. I watch how he runs to the ball. I watch how he hustles all the way around the field. I watch how he's doing those type of things. I see him, somebody hit a guy, he comes in, he flies in, he's ripping out the ball or trying to rip it out, right? Even if it doesn't come out. But having guys that just have this tenacity about them to get to the ball or put themselves in position to reap the benefits of something that comes out, whether it's a fumble, block punt, a tip ball, whatever it is, it feels like they've gotten those type of guys.
Okay, more on the 49ers 5th round pick and more about who could be the next 5th round pick, since the 49ers have another coming up and they have a 6th round pick and they still got 3 7th round selections as well on this episode of Locked On 49ers. I do want to thank everybody out there for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I do want to remind everybody to hit subscribe if you're with us on the live stream. Make sure you tell a friend about Locked On 49ers, hit the notification, the thumbs up, and make sure you hit all those things, and then those always help us out. And today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. If you, like Croc and I, like to play GM sometimes, then this game is for you. This mobile app is something that gives you the ability to control every aspect of your franchise to try to create that dynasty, hiring the right coaches and coordinators. You're deciding what scheme you want to run, then finding the players that run that scheme on offense and defense, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, all the ups and downs of a season, all in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM, completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want to and when you want to. And Locked On 49ers listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise in-game when using promo code Locked On. So check it out today. Download the game. Just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. A couple notes here on Luter. We got Chris Trapasso, CBS, says, one of my favorite cornerbacks in the entire class, calculated, advanced in press, sticky coverage ability, routinely finds the football, plus athlete. Like that. From Lance Zerline here, relayed in the chat, says, Luter, best in press and shadow, not ideal for cover 3 or off man. Interesting.
So everybody's talking about this versatility that he has, being able to play inside and outside, but is it only as a press man guy? Because if you can't play off coverage, nickel, a lot of playing in the nickel is off. And the 49ers have sat in a lot of off. Now, Ambry Thomas, they drafted Ambry Thomas. I thought he was a very physical, aggressive press man guy. And even in zone, he did a really good job of reading his keys from a press alignment. And he gets to the 49ers, they play a lot of off coverage. And what happened? Oh, he's not catching on as fast. Oh, Kyle Shanahan. Well, I didn't think we would even get to the point where we could put him on the field. Right? Well, of course, because you're doing the opposite of what made him good at Michigan. And now you see again, kind of last year, 49ers played a lot of quarters. Who didn't play much? Ambry Thomas. Who did play? Diamador Lenore. What did Diamador Lenore do at Oregon? Played a lot of off. So now we'll see if Wilkes kind of changes some of his defense and how these guys play. But if we're talking about Luter not being good in off coverage, which again, I can't find his dang film, but if he's not that good in off coverage, how does that fit what the 49ers do? Or does Wilkes have something else in mind? And he's like, well, we want to transition either into more press or almost like what I learned from the New York Jets, as you can play press from any coverage. You just change your alignment. So if it's cover 3, you can play from outside shade, squeeze it or bail out. Cover 4, outside shade. Cover 1, inside shade. Cover 2, outside shade, hands on, and play through and read through. So if they allow him to do what the Jets did, what they said, hey, you can play press from any alignment. That's what they did with Antonio Cromartie, with Darrell Revis. Then maybe that would help Luter out some.
Here we go. We got a tip on some film, Croc. I don't know if you have this game handy, but Jose says, check out the South Alabama game at the Rose Bowl versus UCLA this past season. It was a tight game and South Alabama nearly won.
All right, let me see if I have that. Now, again, I can find a lot of stuff on YouTube, but I have my little database.
Croc's got the secret, all 22.
I got the database for the all 22. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
We got action, y'all. All right, I'll be watching them.
Okay, Croc putting on the UCLA South Alabama tape.
There is UC. Shout out to whoever put that in the chat. But, and this is him at the bottom. Okay, there he goes at the bottom. Okay, what's he do? What play 1? How do you think he's lined up? What's his alignment?
Press man. Hey, hold on, Croc. This is something that I've seen since yesterday. Is Jir'Ay Brown, nicknamed Tig? He wants to be going by Tig Brown. So there we go. We don't have to worry about where the apostrophe goes in Jair if we're just calling him Tig Brown now.
All right. And I think that's his Instagram name. I think I saw the 49ers tag him in that. Wow, that was clutch coming through with the UCLA tip. Second play, how's he lined up? Press man. Hands on, Bobo. Oh, but no. Bobo lost him at the top there. You got to be able to anticipate. As soon as the receiver gets an inside release, you got to lean on him. So he does a good job on the inside release with Bobo. I wish I could show y'all this, but he does a good job. We can't show video, right? Is that what our rule is?
Yeah. And so if anybody's wondering if we can do some film breakdowns as a network, we are not allowed copyright reasons to break down video on this specific channel, but we can talk about what we're seeing here for sure.
Okay. So I'm talking about what I'm seeing, guys. And I'm watching Luter. He gets hands on Bobo, big receiver out of UCLA. He should be drafted at some point, day 3, but gets his hands on him. That's good. But when the guy gives you that inside release, you have to anticipate an in-breaking route, whether it's a slant, dig, post, you got to anticipate that. So you want to lean on them. Now, depending on the type of receiver, if you're saying it's Justin Jefferson, you got to be a little bit more honest because he can give you an inside release, push up, give you some at the top and still go out. But Bobo, you give me an inside release, you're doing something in breaking. And watching how Luter kind of covered this, there's no way you get hands on the guy at line of scrimmage and he still creates 5 yards of separation on a slant. And that's you playing with no anticipation. So that's one of the first things I saw. That was second rep of the game.
Here we go. We got some info from Jeff Deeney. Pro Football Focus says Luter allowed a catch rate of just 26.7% in 2021, passer rating of just 3.9. That was the year before when he had 4 interceptions.
They said he can't play off coverage. Looked pretty comfortable there and off. And it looks like he's talking trash to the receiver. So it
sounds like that's one of the aspects, and maybe the 49ers liked about him is he might be chirpy, he might be a really competitive guy, and I could absolutely see that being part of the scouting report that really interested the San Francisco 49ers from a toughness, competitiveness standpoint. And one thing that the 49ers hadn't done in the third round, Croc, is they drafted almost zero traits. You know what I mean? Like,
like big time traits, like 4.3 speed.
Right. Yeah. It was, Cameron Latou, very pedestrian sort of tight end, height, weight, speed numbers, measurables. And when you see it on tape, not a ton of juice. Jir'Ay Brown, speed and athleticism, not superior size or anything. Nothing stood out there from a physical perspective. Everything was instincts and character and competitiveness and, getting his hands on the football. Oh, big hands. There we go. That's the biggest trait from Jir'Ay Brown. He had like 10.5-inch hands or something crazy, like really big hands. That's probably part of him being able to catch the football. And then obviously kicker, which is like, I joked on Twitter that his most standout physical trait was his mustache.
He has a mustache?
Yeah, he got a mustache.
But like no other facial hair, just a mustache?
Just the mustache. You better be a good kicker if you're going to rock the mustache and have like sort of the ironic look going on, If you're going to be like, yeah, I'm a silly kicker and I got a mustache, you better be a good kicker because then people are going to go in on you if you're not.
Well, he was good in college, but it was that kind of like Gardner Minshew, right? Like Minshew was kind of mustache man.
Yeah, and look, let's be honest. I don't think it's the year 2023. I don't think we should be making a big deal about mustaches.
Right.
As if it's some like rare thing that you've never seen before and that someone that has a mustache is like super clever or zany because of it. Let's just wear the stash like it's normal. Normalize mustaches, guys.
So far, what I've seen from Luter is I think I ideally would like to see him be play with a little bit more anticipation with the routes. There are guys that have you play the cornerback position for a long time. You start to have just a feel for routes based off kind of just the body language from a guy. And I'm not quite feeling that from Luter. From press man too, right? And that's what everybody so far, really good at the line of scrimmage, press man guy, can't play off. And I watched him play off. He was squared up, did a terrific job, patient feet, didn't really go for a lot of what the receiver was trying to give him and squeezed the route. He looked really good. From press so far, I've seen Bobo, and again, I'm just watching kind of just this battle. There were just a couple of times where, at the top of a short to intermediate route, he got lost from Bobo. And typically, if somebody asks me, Croc, what's your favorite type of receivers to guard? Oh, give me the 6'4", 6'5" guy. Why? Because I can see their movements coming from a mile away. And right now, I think with him and watching this, I haven't seen that type of anticipation that I ideally would like to see. But again, this is very early. You guys just kind of hearing me play out my process that I usually do when nobody's paying attention to me.
Right. Yeah. So we're still in the short sample zone of film watching here, but I like the play-by-play of breaking down what you're seeing initially watching the Luter tape. Thinking of, so I was talking about traits there. This sounds like a little bit of a different pick compared to those third rounders. So the third rounders more about feel, obviously need with the kicker. And Luter might be a player that they're looking at the traits, looking at the speed. He has length and a competitive guy that they can mold into the player they want to. So this might be more traits based versus where he's at from an instincts and feel perspective.
Right. Because a lot of these things too, you can teach.
Going to take a little look here where the 49ers are and where we are in the draft. So we're at about pick 165, which means we're actually less than 10 picks away. 173. Niners coming up in 8 picks here already. And we are going to stay live with you until the 49ers select again and finish up the 5th round with our thoughts there. Appreciate everybody jumping in the live chat. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. Much appreciated there. Best available players. And there's still a lot of the similar names that we saw earlier on in the 5th round that are available. Still looking at the tight end situation. Davis Allen. I would not mind at all if the 49ers doubled up on the tight end position.
You think they might be able to get him undrafted?
Davis Allen?
Yeah.
No. He'll go soon, I think. 5th round is kind of where I pegged him, and so I'm sure Davis Allen's going to come off the board right now. He's a prototype NFL tight end as far as, maybe not the most athletic guy, but I like his feet. He had a good 10-yard time, even though he only ran, I think, 4.8 in the 40. He'll block you. Physical is long. It's good in good hands, good getting the ball. It's more of the basketball athleticism type of a player. Will Mallory, more of a speed oriented. Actually, Will Mallory is off the board, so he is not there anymore. Zach Kuntz, is still there though with the the combine superstar, but he's more of a 7th round guy for me. Braden Willis as well as another tight end the 49ers brought in for a 30 visit out of Oklahoma, but very similar profile to Cameron Latou. So maybe that's what they were looking for, is that a little bit more of a move H-back type of a tight end in this draft.
I have seen in the chat a couple of people ask for offensive linemen, and my thoughts on just if you're drafting an offensive lineman for need in the 5th round, you're in trouble.
Well, yeah. I mean, anybody for need at this point. You're drafting guys that you think you can mold. You're drafting special teamers. You're drafting players that you think could eventually make an impact down the road, not so much in 2023. Guys that fit your locker room, or taking some swings on some traits and guys that you might be able to coach up in the future as well. So just looking at the best available players, some names we've already mentioned. Corey Trice, cornerback. Doubt they go back-to-back corners here in the 5th, but they could. A.T. Perry, wide receiver from Wake Forest. I know Croc liked the film there. Not many wide receivers I'm excited about beyond A.T. Perry. If the 49ers wanted to add another wide receiver, more of a downfield, 6'3", 198-pound, old school. I called him a late 90s wide receiver. He would have been a first rounder back in 1997. That's what the A.T. Perry reminds me of. Henry To'o, an athletic linebacker out of Alabama. I could see absolutely being a fit for him at this point in the draft. So those are sort of the top names. If you're looking for an offensive lineman, Jalen Duncan, a tackle for Maryland, and Luke Weipler, center from Ohio State, probably the 2 best there. But 7th round, once we start getting deeper into this draft, Jake Witt out of Northern Michigan is an interesting name. Super athletic guy. I called him Kirkland brand Blake Freeland because he's 6'7", 302. He might be a redshirt guy where he needs to get into the, there's a big jump in competition. He played at only 280 pounds, I think, in college. And so he's really bulking up for the draft process to kind of try to get ready to be an NFL player, but got up to 302 pounds at his pro day and ran 4.89 and 37-inch verticals, a former hooper. So he's like a hooper that became a tight end that became an offensive tackle late in his college career. So a lot of traits there, and that would be someone that would be interesting for the 49ers. They're trying to draft and develop, but it's hard to project as good as the 49ers have been at finding 5th round gems and guys that ended up being, starters and even star players in the NFL. It's hard to project that at this point, but there are some guys with traits still available.
Right. And I see someone in the chat mentioned, Trent Brown, he was like 7th round pick. And I think in this range, you are drafting guys that you might see potential in, right? More so than, hey, we got to need that right tackle, so let's draft this right tackle in the 5th round. Like, I don't think that's your thought process. No. I think it's, hey, we kind of like where we're at in these positions, or, man, this guy didn't fall to us, so we couldn't get him. But you know what? Hey, there is this right tackle that we kind of like. Let's see what we can do with him. Or maybe there's a guy that we project to go more in the 6th round that we've identified him in that range. And if we get him there, then there is a little bit more value with him there. So I feel like that's where you're at. Now, if you get surprised by any of these guys, then awesome. But that's what you're kind of banking on, getting surprised by someone as opposed to drafting him, assuming he's just going to beat out Colton McKivitz.
So let's go back and what did the 49ers hit on in 5th rounds previously that made those players great? Why is George Kittle great? Why is Talanoa Hufanga great? Dre Greenlaw, they're athletic guys and they put on good tape. There were reasons they fell in the draft a little bit, but they were still good players that, I was super excited when the 49ers drafted George Kittle, Well,
that was your shadow 49, and you drafted him to the Niners a round prior, right?
I mean, in the 4th round. Yeah, I like George Kittle a lot. I was like, what's not to like about this guy? Physical, runs 4.5. You can see some athleticism on tape, and it's like, once you get to that point in the draft, it's like, let's go. And so that was sort of a traits-based pick. But what made him great wasn't necessarily his traits. It's how he's wired. It's neck up stuff. Talanoa Hufanga, same way, right? So I think also, that's maybe what you're looking for here more than just, who's falling. Maybe if they're one thing short on their athletic profile, they can make up for it because they're going to go be the best player and they're built in a certain way to go achieve everything they can as an athlete.
Oh, man, there's a linebacker that just went off the board to the Houston Texans. We're going to talk about him in a second. But with George Kittle, when they drafted him in the 5th round, did they think this guy is going to start over Vance McDonald? Right? Like,
no. They didn't draft for need. We're like, hey, we need a starting tight end. We're going to draft George Kittle right now.
in the 5th round. Correct.
Right.
Now, you say they drafted Evan Ingram in the 1st round, which I think Evan Ingram went like 1st round, or OJ Howard. I think he was in that class as
Yep.
well.
Both
Then
first.
it's like, okay, you're drafting this guy to come in. Hey, bro, you got to be the guy right now. But Houston Texans, a guy that I identified as I felt like was a really good fit for the 49ers, Henry To'oTo'o, right? And I just said, just the way that he plays, he's a sideline to sideline type of guy, more finesse in terms of just the athleticism. I think he's a coverage guy, and it felt like a Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, like what the mold of linebacker that those guys fit. Not this big, just super downhill thumper, but a guy that's fluid, can run, no stiffness, can cover, be out in space, and you're good with that. And it's interesting that I identified him as that, and the Houston Texans with DeMeco Ryans draft him.
Yep. DeMeco Ryans just swooped him up. Not only that, but an Alabama guy as well. Henry To'oTo'o, 6'1", 227. Yeah, plays athletic. He's not a thumper. He's not an old school 250-pound. I'm going to take on fullbacks, but who even has a fullback anymore, right? He's a run and hit linebacker, really active, athletic linebacker. And he's going to be potentially there. There you go. There's your Drake Greenlaw, 5th round linebacker for DeMeco Ryans, Henry To'oTo'o.
Yeah. Good football player, too. I mean, again, he's a guy from the Bay Area, went to Tennessee, transferred to Alabama. When he transferred to Alabama, like that was a big thing, transferring to Bama from Tennessee. He was Tennessee's best player on their defense.
Alabama, they had a weird season, right? Because everyone talks about how it wasn't really one of the best Alabama teams, but they had all of these transfers. Like they had an unbelievable, almost all these guys we're talking about, Ricks and To'oTo'o, and now
they had Jermaine, the receiver from Georgia.
Yes, and Jahmyr Gibbs transfer.
Right. I think my issue with the way they talk about it, right? Even talking about Bryce Young, I heard him get drafted, and it's like, oh, he didn't have the best weapons this year, blah blah. And it's like, well, welcome to college football. Most people don't have 4 receivers going 1st round. Now, obviously, you see what Ohio State's kind of doing, and I get it if you're comparing them to C.J. Stroud and the pass catchers that C.J. had, that Stroud had. But most teams, most of these quarterbacks that we're talking about, they're not loaded. So Bryce Young, it just kind of evened the playing field with, okay, doesn't have great pass catchers. Well, that's most of college football. Most of these other, like who I'm talking about for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Bobo. Like, that's your guy?
Bobo? It's hard to take a guy named Bobo seriously.
And he's a big receiver, and he was catching touchdowns, but, like, Bobo's still on the board. Like, we don't even know if he's going to get drafted. And Alabama is like, well, they got all these receivers every year. So, yes, there's a drop-off in the sense of just the guys that he was just throwing to, but everybody else deals with that same type of thing. And might still not even, like, we're not talking about 5-star receivers that Alabama, even in the year where guys aren't great for them at receiver, like those are 5 stars, 5-star kids. And these other guys aren't, they're just not playing with that.
Here we go. We're getting closer. We are getting closer. It's not looking like any of the big names we've talked about. BJ Thompson's an interesting name that could have been a fit for the 49ers here in round 5. He just went to the Kansas City Chiefs at pick 166, sort of an edge player, listed as an outside linebacker here. 6'5", 248 pounds, I think, nearly 250, sort of an athletic, very lean edge rusher that the 49ers did have in on a 30 visit, but now off the board just before they select. And we're about 4 picks away from the San Francisco 49ers at pick 173. Croc, are you still rolling on that South Alabama UCLA tape? What are you seeing from our guy Darrell Luter?
Play again. He definitely is comfortable in press. I will give him that.
Are you seeing twitch on tape, athleticism?
I don't see poor movement skills so far. And again, he hasn't been targeted yet, so it's also hard to see just how his body naturally reacts to the ball being thrown in his direction.
Mm-hmm.
In the way, again, I mean, I just talked about UCLA and them not having the most impressive pass catchers out there that's really going to challenge a guy. So that part is hard to tell as well. That's why I love when it comes to like SEC guys, like 49ers draft those guys because you get to see them play against the big dogs. And you get to see exactly how they react to certain skill sets.
I mean, that's what's hard about all of this too, and it's an inexact science. And there you do get some fans that are sort of lazy, and they're not like into the draft, or they don't have anything to add to the conversation. They just get mad at us if we don't like fully love a pick, and they're like, "Well, I think John Lynch knows more than you, and he's smarter than you." It's like, if you don't have anything to add to the conversation, just let the adults talk. Is kind of my response to those types of things. Like, bring something, like go watch them yourself, maybe learn a little something. But to think that these teams are perfect and that they're going to hit on every pick, like the 49ers aren't going to draft 9 Hall of Famers. I got news for you. But they're going to draft some good players. And sometimes I see it differently. And there's a player that is a lot better than I thought he was going to be. And sometimes we're completely right. And we're like, what were you doing? That was a dumb pick. And it turns out to be a dumb pick. Like that's what happens. But that's what's fun about this. And it's such an inexact science. And it's not only just watching a player and who he is, but it's how many different factors there are in all of it. Like looking at some of these like super spread systems. And it's like, how do you even scout this? Because what they're doing doesn't translate at all to the NFL. So you're just looking at how they move and hoping they can move that way in your scheme because it's so different. There was an interview recently, Croc, with Derrick Henry, and he said and this is a guy who played in the SEC at Alabama, the closest thing you can get to the NFL, right? He said it's not only a different type of game. He said it's a different sport in college football than the NFL. It's a completely different sport. And so that's what makes all this even more difficult when you're trying to project, and you're trying to project somebody who was playing against a D1AA or whatever FBS talent, trying to make that projection to the NFL. So it's difficult. This is an inexact science, and it's madness, and it's chaos, and that's also why it's so dang fun.
Yeah. And I think South Alabama, I think they are D1A now. I think they're FBS now. But when I played against them, they were FCS.
Right. I got it backwards. FCS is the 1AA. FBS was the 1A. Okay.
Why did they change that? Why don't they just keep it at 1A and 1AA?
They just want to. I don't trust anybody with the suit in the NCAA as far as I can throw them. So
yeah, can't throw them very far either.
Yeah. Come on, I've been lifting, Croc.
But yeah, I still got the film rolling. I finally saw him got targeted on the slant route. Thought it was good coverage, not sticky. I would ideally, like I just watched Joey Porter Jr. And I actually wasn't watching Joey Porter Jr. I was watching, what do we call him? Trig Brown. All right, so I was watching Trig Brown.
No, Tig.
Excuse me.
Tig Brown. Tig Brown.
So I was watching Tig Brown, and Joey Porter Jr. just kept just flash. I was like, damn. Okay, I see why. Because remember, it was hard for me to get to the top guys. We watched so many guys that were projected kind of 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round. It was hard for me to get to the top guys. But I'm watching their safety.
I was just happy I watched the guys that the 49ers drafted in the 3rd round, a kicker aside. And I did watch a little Jake Moody and see him kick before, but I don't even know how you begin to scout kickers. Aside from how far their kicks go and how often they go through the uprights. But it's such a wide net we had to cast just for pick 99. So we started getting to the 5th round. And so I'll be happy if the 49ers from here on out draft anybody that I've actually spent any time scouting throughout this process.
Yeah, and usually it's easier, right? If we're talking 1st round, it's like, all right, it's going to be one of these guys.
Yeah, By the way, you remember last year around this time, Croc, 49ers 6th round pick, who ended up not making the team in Castro Fields out of Penn State. When the 49ers drafted Castro Fields, I went to the Penn State tape and I started watching this long corner, and I was like, oh, dude, this guy's good. And then I realized about after 5-10 minutes that I was watching Joey Porter Jr. and not Castro Fields, and I was getting super excited.
Told me that. Yeah,
you told me that. Dude. And I was like, oh, I like Castro Fields too, but I was watching the other guy first.
You told me that. You're like, oh, I like 9 a little better. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't tune into 9 like that, but man, I was just watching Tig Brown, new 49er safety, and yeah, Joey Porter Jr. I mean, it was just play after play, like pass breakup, and then chalk and trash. Gave a guy the thumbs down. I actually tweeted out that video. He broke up the ball down the field and then said thumbs down. I was like, oh, I like him,
dude. And I watched so much of the other safety last year too, out of Penn State.
Yeah,
Brown. I'm blanking on his name now. Brown's teammate at safety, and he went in the 2nd round to the Bears. And I remember
Jaquan Brisker.
Brisker, yes, thank you, Brisker. And I remember it's like that was an insane secondary they had. All draftable guys. Castro Fields was the worst of them. And then watching, and I remember the other safety making plays too. And I remember he was a good player when I was watching these games, but it didn't really, I didn't really look at it as this is a future 49er potentially over here too at the other safety spot next to Brisker, because they had Brisker playing. They were very interchangeable. And that's, remember, one of the things we liked about Brisker. It was like, oh, this is perfect. Fits the 49ers, because strong safety, which the 49ers quote unquote need, turns out they didn't really need a strong safety after how well Hufanga played. But interchangeable, could play free safety or could drop back and go back and forth. And the other guy who was interchanging with him, who was playing free safety, dropping in, dropping out, was Tig Brown.
Tig Brown. And I have watched a lot of them earlier today. And I think what I saw yesterday still remains true, like a lot of those same things. I did not see. Here's the tough thing on speed at the safety position. I don't know, like, if it's like, man, if he's a 4.3, could he have gotten to, like, there was a ball down the right sideline of the offense where he kind of got there just as the ball was arriving, kind of stuck his hand out, but the guy just caught it. It was like a kind of a cover 2 hole shot, or it was kind of single high. It was kind of weird how they did it. Anyways, it's like, if he was a 4.47, would he have been there to pick it off? And that's the part right there. We're watching film. It's like, oh, okay, nice completion, nice throw by the quarterback. But man, if this guy was a tick faster, would that have been the play the other way? And then that's the difference between a comp 3rd round pick as opposed to a late 1st or early 2nd round pick at the safety position.
Right. And then you have to look. You can have all the instincts in the world and be a really good player, but is that 4.6 going to show up when he needs to get there and he's in center field and he needs to be able to get to the sideline? Will that hold him back from being the player that the 49ers hope they traded up to get in the 3rd round? That would be really the only question at this point, is that pure just range. Could it hold him back? But again, like at his pro day, ran 4.58. That's a fast human being. Like 4.58. We look at it because guys are running crazy times these days. And like, I don't know. Can you play center field 4.58? I mean, yeah, you can.
But think about, who are the good safeties in the league? And then think about what they're running. Think of the Mika Fitzpatrick, the Derwin James. Even 2nd round pick last year, like Javon Holland and what he's doing over there in Miami. Like, these guys can run. Daxton Hill, he got drafted last year to Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, these guys they can run.
They can run, yeah.
That's why. So now here's something again. I don't even know if it makes any sense to talk about it, but I'm looking at the 49ers and what they did last year in the 3rd round and then what they did in this year in the 3rd round. And last year in the 3rd round, you drafted Ty Davis Price. I thought that was wild, right? Especially after drafting a running back the 3rd round the year before and having the 6th round guy outproduce him and then go and get another guy that is like, oh, we'll see how good he is. Like, why would you do that when Nick Cross was on the board? So Nick Cross, more high-level traits, ability, was available for you, ran in the 4.3s, had the body, had the physicality, had the ball hawking skills. We saw all those things, right? But you passed on him, drafted running back, and then this year let's go get a safety that we really like. He probably a gold star helmet type guy or gold helmet guy, but doesn't have the traits of a Nick Cross. That's the part where. And
how much did that affect Nick Cross last year? Because remember, there was crazy training camp stories about him. And it was like, oh, this is the next Bob Sanders. This dude's amazing. He was the week 1 starter at safety, at free safety for the, for the Colts. And then week 2, he kind of disappeared, never started another game the rest of the year. So he needed to catch up, I think, mentally, right? But he had all the traits. And you get Tig Brown, who's kind of the opposite, where, can he start? Could even start over Gibson from week 1. And like from the neck up should be the part where he's better at. And even if he is a step slower range wise than maybe some of the other top safety prospects.
Right. Dang, I was about to say something. I forgot exactly what I was going to say.
I kept rambling on that one. I took your thought right out of your dome.
Well, I started looking at some of the best players available. And when I know the 49ers are coming up, they might be on
Here we go. The 49ers are coming up on the clock next. We've got pick number 173, the San Francisco 49ers, 2nd pick in round 5. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, and MLB season is here. Major League Baseball all summer long, and FanDuel's got you covered, America's #1 sports book. And now is the best time to subscribe and get involved at FanDuel because new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So don't miss the chance right now for your no-sweat first bet. Draft props, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and of course, Major League Baseball. Up to $1,000 back in bonus bets with the no-sweat first bet at FanDuel. So join today. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Here we go, Croc. San Francisco 49ers are on the clock in round 5 for the second time. Pick number 173. We've talked about a lot of the names, a lot of them still in play. One of the big names we had talked about, Henry To'o, has been off the board. He went to D'Amico Ryans in Houston, linebacker there. So we'll see what's in play for the San Francisco 49ers here. And, late round 5, pick 173 overall. We probably shouldn't be surprised in just about any general direction that the 49ers go.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 49ers pick right now, and you got Jir'Ay Brown, Jake Moody, Cam Latu, and Darrell Luter. And I saw somebody on Twitter like, what are the 49ers doing? This is terrible. And he's not like a 49er fan. I think it's just some evaluation, draft website guy or whatever. And it's like, well, what do you want them to do? Like, these are all comp picks. Dang near, So it's like, you're not going to hear me make a big fuss out of guys that, it's not like they have first round pick, second round pick, and they drafted a kicker. It's like I would get the outrage at that. But
you do the social media thing, Croc, like that. I think it was the Baltimore Ravens might have done it, where it was like with the second round pick, the Baltimore Ravens select, and they put the linebacker that they traded for with the Chicago Bears, and that was our pick. And it's like, the 49ers, you could do that too. It was like in the second round where the 49ers select Christian McCaffrey. Round 3, 49ers select Christian McCaffrey, right? So they've got some players to show for this draft class in Trey Lance and Christian McCaffrey. But when it's in real time and you see the Seattle Seahawks make, 7 picks and get a lot better, and you're like, okay, got a kicker, and hopefully we've got a starting safety in the future there. But, I can see how it could be a very underwhelming class with where the 49ers are selecting.
Yeah.
That's to be expected.
You got a guy, Jay Shaw, in the chat, and he says, comp picks does not mean that it should be, it's not wasted. It's just not sexy. It's not splashy because it's so late. The guys that are the sexy, splashy guys, for the majority they're gone. And the guys that are sexy, but still there, they got some issues going on. Right. And like like Washington, we started talking about like the knee, the off the field thing. The cornerback out of Georgia, Kelly Ringo, is like, well, what's wrong with him? Oh, man, can't play off, not as twitched up, So 49ers would love that, right? Or you get Ringo because the name is sexy, but how does he fit with what they're doing? So the picks aren't wasted. It's just not sexy or splashy with what they're doing.
Here we go, Croc. The pick is in with pick number 173 in the 5th round of the 2023 NFL Draft. The San Francisco 49ers select Robert Beal Jr., edge rusher, outside linebacker from Georgia, 6'4", 247-pounder, and not letting the Philadelphia Eagles draft all of the Georgia defenders. Croc, Robert Beal going to the San Francisco 49ers, according to the scouting report at ESPN, which is the tracker I'm looking at right now. Beal has the versatility to play off-ball linebacker and line up on the edge. Has the strength and long arms to stack blocks, but he needs to improve his array of moves. Beal has the power, length, and speed to develop into an effective pass rusher.
And did you see his 40?
I did not see his 40, but I'm guessing it should be fast if he's an undersized outside linebacker / edge rusher that's going 6'4" and under 250 pounds. And he went to Georgia.
Take a guess.
4.50.
4.48, close.
Boom. That's speed. That's speed.
That's just watching him. It looked like he was taking on blocks, tackling guys in the backfield. I'm looking at his stats right here. 25 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. So, that was definitely a defensive line that could really get after it. Was he more of a rotation piece? And I mean, they're really loaded. And think about how many front seven guys for them have been drafted over the last couple years. So, I mean, if he would have went to South Alabama, what would his numbers have looked like? I say South Alabama because of Luter, but it's like, is he a 15 sack a year guy? But it's like, well, I'm playing the SEC, and all these guys that are with me are getting drafted first, second round.
Well, it's interesting because the first rounder, Nolan Smith, who with 4 threes in his 40, he was kind of similar, undersized edge guy, and was a versatile player, did a little bit of both. He only had like 3 sacks too. So not a ton of production sack-wise for that position in Georgia's defense.
I like the pedigree though, just drafting guys. And we've seen Philadelphia Eagles. How many Georgia players have they drafted this year and last year too? And I think a lot of people are kind of making fun of them a little bit that they're the Georgia Eagles now, or whatever they're called, the Eagle Bulldog or Philly Bulldogs. But they're going after pedigree. They're going after guys. Hey man, like you played at a championship level the last 2 years. You understand what it takes. You understand how to prepare. Like, you guys have been molded for this. You guys played at the highest level, week in and week out. And I think getting those type of guys just from the preparation standpoint, I really like that. I mean, think about some of the things with guys that are on 49ers roster right now, what guys have to learn along the way, or certain guys like Drake Jackson. And, you hear some of the things with Drake Jackson kind of rode the little roller coaster at USC where it was up and down and up and down, and they had all kind of turnover and change. And it's like, okay, I'll just go with it. As opposed to Hufanga, who his preparation and how he approached it never changed. And I think we see that from the day he stepped on the field as a 49er, as opposed to Drake Jackson. So you get a guy like this, and we'll see how Beal translates to the NFL to be more consistent and learn how to use some of his weapons. But you talked about Niners not really drafting traits right now. I think this was a very traitsy pick in this one.
Definitely a traitsy pick. Former big time recruit, 5th-year senior though, so it took him took a while for it to come together versus some of the other big time recruits at Georgia. And he's nearly 24 years old. Last 2 seasons though is when he's had his production. He only started 8 games last year out of 15 for Georgia. The year before he started 2 out of 15 games. So a rotational stand-up type of a rusher. He had 6.5.
I saw his hand in the dirt though. Like when they were showing highlights of him, hand was in the dirt.
So like the Georgia scheme is sort of like that odd front 3-4. I wonder okay, so judging by the last 2 picks here in the 5th round, Wilkes getting some defensive players. Is he drafting guys on defense to fit his scheme that might have some changes to it? Because, generally the 49ers haven't really been a team to employ a bunch of, under 250-pound speed rushers. Basically, D Ford is, I guess, Samson Abel-Comm could see that role for him. So I take that back. Combine for Robert Beal Jr. 6'3 3/4, 247 pounds, long 34 and almost 35-inch arm length, which is really long. Big 10-inch hands too. So when they talk about in the scouting report, looking the part, yeah, he's a long-armed, edge sort of a player. Nearly 6'4", just under 250 pounds. 4.44 in the 40-yard dash, 1.56 10-yard split. 30-inch vertical, 10.3 broad jump, and then at his pro day, not great agilities. So, straight line-ish, explosive sort of a prototype here for his athletic measurements. 4.42 short shuttle and 7.26 3-cone.
I think your guy might have got drafted. He did. Davis Allen, he's gone.
There he goes.
Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, the Rams going Y tight end. The 49ers going F tight end.
And you were spot on. You said 5th round.
He's a 5th round dude. I like him. I would have had him earlier in the 5th round.
Yeah.
Rams going back-to-back, actually, right after the 49ers with Warren McClendon out of Georgia. So back-to-back Georgia teammates going with Beal, the edge player at 39 in the 5th round, 173 overall. Then 174 was Warren McClendon out of Georgia, the offensive tackle, who I saw mocked to the 49ers in this range. And then Davis Allen, Clemson tight end. Back-to-back Rams picks at 175.
Do the 49ers have 6th-round picks?
They have 1 6th and 3 7ths.
Gotcha.
One more note from the Beast from draft analyst Dane Brugler of The Athletic in the summary of Robert Beal as a prospect. Beal is raw with his pass rush setup and execution versus the run, but has the size, speed profile, and splash plays that suggest he could be a better pro than a college player. He's worth the gamble somewhere in the middle of day 3 of the draft. So there you go. Nailed that one, Brugler, with where he ended up going. And this is a swing at a traitsy guy. So traits day 3, day 2, going with the maybe this, I don't want to say safe, but going with the feel players, the character players in round 3, then in round 5, some more traits here.
Which way would you lean? Traits or gold helmet?
Gold helmet. Yeah, gold helmet all day. Gold helmet with traits is even better, right? With edge rushers, it's tough because if there's such a feel to it, and after 5 years at Georgia, if you're 6'4", 250 and run 4.44 and you're not good, I'm not saying he's not good. I don't know.
If you're not a first round pick like all the other guys,
you should be. I get it's the SEC, but if you're 4-star, 5-star recruit and you're built like that, after 5 years in college, you should be able to accumulate, I think, a bigger level of production. And so does that raw ever go away would be my question. Why still raw after all this time for Robert Beale? But I mean, you look at just what the numbers look like here with how he's built and some of that arm length, a coach is going to look at that and say, give me those raw tools and we'll try to coach him up. And Kosarek's been amazing at doing that kind of thing. So here, maybe this is your home run play and your next 5th round superstar for the San Francisco 49ers. He had 6.5 sacks last year, 3 sacks this year.
Okay.
In rotational work.
Do the 49ers address interior offensive lineman? Luke Weipler is still on the board. I mean, this is a guy that people are projecting potentially 2nd round. Like, he's high on big boards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think offensive line's absolutely in play in round 6 and 7. They could even throw a quarterback in there. They could draft a receiver in there somewhere. There's a lot of positions I think still in play for the 49ers on the rest of day 3 with 4 more picks.
I think they need to package some of these up, move up and get A.T. Perry.
You want to move up again? All right.
A.T. Perry better be good as much as I've talked about him. Now people are going to be like, oh, this guy was trash. Croc, what the hell are you talking about?
I don't think Shanahan's going to like him. It's the style. Those tall, skinny receivers are just out of vogue in the NFL.
Yeah.
Teams don't like them. Their route tree is different. Everyone wants to throw the short, quick stuff. And so if he goes to a team with a quarterback that's good at throwing the ball down the field, I could see A.T. Perry being a really good player. But
right, it's like nobody wants that. But then you watch T. Higgins, and it's like, oh, that's the best wide receiver 2 in the league. He should be a wide receiver 1 somewhere. And it's like, well, he's a 6'4", 4'5" guy.
Well, there you go. If he goes to Cincinnati and then they either trade or let T. Higgins walk, there's your path for A.T. Perry. That's what he's hoping for. Real quick, just to wrap up a couple things here from round 5 of the San Francisco 49ers NFL draft. Fish and Chip says Tig Bach has ball hawk skills like Gibson. And Fish and Chips, I don't know if you were in the live stream yesterday, but I just want to bring this up because I talked about how similar Gibson and Tig Brown are as athletes and their strengths and weaknesses. Because when we were sitting there talking about what Brown is as a player, sounded a lot like Tashaun Gibson. So I went to the combine to find out what Tashaun Gibson was coming out. And this is what I found. And they're remarkably similar. Tashaun Gibson, Pro Day 2012, 5'11 and 3/8, 206 pounds, 4.61 40-yard dash, 35.5-inch vertical, 10.2 broad jump, 4.28 shuttle. Jir'Ay Tig Brown, Pro Day 2023, 5'11 and 3/8, exactly the same height, 203 pounds, 3 pounds lighter than Tashaun Gibson, 4'5'8", and he had a 4.65 at the combine. So, you take the middle point of those 240s that Jir'Ay Brown ran at his pro day in the combine, exactly the same speed as Tashaun Gibson, both identical 35.5-inch verticals, 10.4 broad jump versus 10.2 broad jump. Brown a little quicker in the shuttle by 0.07 of a second, 4.21 versus 4.28. So, I mean, the athletic profile there and how they are, getting their hands on footballs, being in the right place. I mean, they're turning back the clock with rookie Tashaun Gibson in a lot of ways.
And when you said that, I'm like, wow, because he kind of looks like just the way he's kind of built, the way he looks when watching him on film, it looks a lot like Gibson. And I was wondering if Gibson was going to be faster, like early in his career, because we were talking about Gibson now, right? Like, man, he looks like Gibson now, like just with the way that he kind of moves around and whatnot. But it comes to find out, identical traits coming out of college as a prospect.
Gibson, though, was undrafted in 2012 and signed by the Browns.
Right.
And ended up with
typically with those kind of traits, you are undrafted, but the 49ers like, gold helmet guy.
Last one here. This is one of the earlier comments that I starred. What do you think about this? So, we've seen 5 rounds now of the NFL draft. SF Goldrush says, one of the worst off seasons I can remember, especially being so close to winning a Super Bowl. This team refuses to do what it needs to get over the hump. What do you think about this? And this was before he saw the 5th round picks. This was after knowing what the 49ers did in the 3rd round, lost a lot of free agents. I don't think this is a worse team than they were last year at this time. There are positions, though, that you could look at and say they could be worse here. And quarterback is the big one, right, for the 49ers. Quarterback goes well, Niners are going to be good. They're not going to be bad because they spent one of their late 3rd round picks on a kicker instead of somebody else, most likely. And so even if you don't like the kicker pick, it's not going to be like, oh, you can't win the Super Bowl now because you drafted a kicker in the 3rd round. Were they going to draft a superstar in the 3rd? Maybe one of the guys we were talking about that they should have taken instead is going to be a superstar. But you're not expecting to draft starters and difference-making players probably for your team in 2023 in the late 3rd round, which is why the 49ers thought kicker probably gets as close as anything else.
I think that was probably the biggest issue with this offseason, right? Like, I look at the team is going to be good regardless, right? Like, look at their Super Bowl odds. So you can kind of think, because maybe they didn't make as many moves as some of these other teams, but their odds say people believe that this is one of the best rosters in the league, and they don't even know who the hell is going to be at quarterback week 1. And they still feel that way about the 49ers. So as far as the offseason goes, you went, I mean, how many holes did they have? Essentially, the entire offense is coming back outside of Daniel Brunskill and Mike McGlinchey, right? So right tackle, you go, okay, McKivitz, you're in year 3 or 4 or whatever. Okay, like, let's get something out of you. Matter of fact, I said starter shoot. Brunskill rotated with Spencer Burford. So you literally lost one starter on the offense, and then defensively, you lost some guys that contributed. But it's like, well, we drafted Drake Jackson in the 2nd round last year to end up being the guy. And then we got some other players who can kind of fill the role of a Menuhu and some of these other guys, and you still got Ebukam. So how much did the 49ers truly lose? I think Jimmy Ward and Emmanuel Mosley. But even then, Emmanuel Mosley, you played most of the season without him. Jimmy Ward, you played most of the season without him at his like true position. So I don't look at the 49ers and think that they're just this worst team. You win, you got Hargraves. I think that was a really big signing. But what changes really how people view it is typically you have a 1st round pick, 2nd round pick where you can make this splash play and just plug this guy in as a potential starter. And right now you just can't. And I think that's the, like if I told you, oh man, they drafted Jir'Ay Porter Jr. in the 1st round. Like now this goes from, oh man, this is one of the worst off seasons to, oh man, you got him opposite Travarius Ward. Now you're way more excited about what the 49ers did over the entire offseason. And then they're up against it cap-wise, money-wise. I know they moved some stuff around with McCaffrey to free up some money, but I don't know.
If you're excited and all on board of the 49ers trading up and getting a quarterback in 2021 or trading for Christian McCaffrey, you can't be upset that they don't have any picks in the first 3 rounds right now either.
Okay. I don't, and then this is not me making excuses for them. I just look at it like, if the 49ers had to play a game tomorrow, how confident am I that they'll win? I think I'd be very confident that they'll win. So,
quarterback and offensive line, that's, I could see things going really bad, and there could be injuries anywhere, and you could lose really important players for your team. But if the offensive line can protect the quarterback and they're able to run the football a little bit, like they always have, and right tackle's not a problem, or there's not a bunch of injuries devastating the rest of the offensive line, because is if McKivitz is replacing McGlinchey, and clearly the 49ers like McKivitz, who's replacing McKivitz is my question. So you're teetering on the edge if you lose one guy all of a sudden now, because if you lost last year, if you lost Trent Williams, McKivitz was your swing tackle. Well, McKivitz starting on the right side. So you're starting from, less depth there on the offensive line. There's going to be some injuries. So who's the swing guy now? Dark horse situation for me still, Croc, is what if McKivitz is still the swing guy? They move Burford out to right tackle, and it's Jason Poe at right guard. Maybe they're still going to draft some more depth here on the interior, and they still will, I'm sure, come with another offensive lineman that can compete for depth along the offensive line. But offensive line's not better than it was last year. They literally lost one of their starters and have some of their depth coming up to replace him. And quarterback health is pretty going to be there all year. But, so those are the questions right now, and they weren't going to go out and do anything crazy at quarterback to go over the top of Purdy and Lance anyway, right? So that was always going to be what it was going to be. So really the offensive line is like, okay, looks like you got a plan. Let's hope you're right, 49ers.
Right. And again, with the roster, and again, how I'm viewing it, I think it's a solid roster. Most teams, you have some type of weaknesses. I'd say a team that feels like they just got better, probably Philadelphia, right? I mean, it just feels like.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a big difference when you have no first rounders or second rounders or your original third rounder and you have 2 first rounders. Right. Like that looks a lot different when you're sitting here right here. Like the 49ers didn't get worse, but they didn't get better like the Seahawks and the Eagles did.
It doesn't feel like it.
Well, at least in the last few days, they didn't.
All right. Yeah. But you did address, Hargraves, because I saw someone say 49ers was too passive this offseason, but like going out and getting Hargraves and paying them $80-something million doesn't feel like a passive move.
Oh, that's not passive. That is active. That is very active. And yeah, and Philly used their draft picks to replace, players that are going to, age out or get too expensive for them. And they're keeping a long-term outlook there on their defensive line with their front. And they're hoping that Carter can replace Hargrave, and they're hoping that Nolan Smith can replace, Reddick eventually when he goes, and they're not going to be able to pay him because they're paying their quarterback $50 million. And that's where it gets difficult for the 49ers. When you don't have those high picks, it's hard to draft those high-end talented players to replenish them. So really interesting with the 49ers team building here. The 5th round now in the books, and 2 new San Francisco 49ers, South Alabama cornerback Darrell Luter and edge rusher out of Georgia, Robert Beal Jr. and Croc and I back with another one to break down round 6 and 7 right here, Locked On 49ers.